Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Principles for Clinical Self-Care live Q&A with David Crow, botanical medicine expert and founder of Floracopia. I'm Sherry, your host for today. Let me just take a moment to introduce David. David is one of the world's foremost experts and leading speakers in the field of botanical medicine and grassroots healthcare. He's a master herbalist, aromatherapist, and acupuncturist with over 30 years experience, and he is an expert in the Ayurvedic and Chinese medical systems. David will be responding to many of the questions that were submitted prior to our time together today, and he's also inviting your questions through the chat. And you'll find the chat feature at the bottom of your Zoom window on your computer. If you've joined us by mobile device, tap your screen and then tap More to reveal the chat function. All right, let's get started. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Sherry, for the introduction. And thank you, everybody, for being here and for submitting really good questions. These questions are really good because they will allow us some time to really understand what this course is about. Now, as always, when we do a Q&A session, people submit a lot of different kinds of questions. And some of the questions are not specifically relevant for what we're talking about here today. There are always people asking questions about what herb do I use for this condition? How do I treat this particular condition, and so forth. And this is not always the best venue. Sometimes it is, but in this particular case, it's not the best venue to talk about herbal treatment. But we never end up having enough time to talk about those questions anyway. And I just want to mention that I have a standard answer for all of the healthcare questions that you are asking. And the answer is yes. Okay, the answer is that herbal medicine can help at some level. It doesn't matter what the condition is. It doesn't matter how serious it is or how simple it is. What matters is that there is always a place for nutrition. There's always a place for high quality herbal medicine. There's always something we can do at any age of life with any condition. There's always some role that botanical medicine can play that can help us. And so some questions that came in, I will address them about specific health concerns, but I'm going to put everything into the context of what the course is about. And I'll just bring to your attention the website address for the course in case you hadn't seen it. I'm going to mention a few things as we go along also, just to point out some of the things that are happening on the course page. And in case you haven't seen it, or in case you want to take a look at some of the things I'm referring to as I'm going along, it's clinicallevelselfcare.com, just like it sounds, clinicallevelselfcare.com. So there's a few things that people always want to know at the beginning about how this course is different than previous courses. And this is a perfectly natural question to ask, since I have been teaching so many courses now for the last several years, and many of you have been in all of them, and some of you have been in some of them. And thank you for that. And so now we are moving into a new course, and this course is really quite different actually than previous courses. There are some elements in this course that I have been touching on this year, especially in the longer 6-month program that I just completed on modern epidemics. But this course is really quite different in that it is really not so much of an herbal course. And you will see that if you are looking on the course page, you will see the title, which is Principles of Clinical Level Self-Care. Now, principles of clinical level self-care are really different than using herbal medicine. There is one module in this 5-module series that is dedicated to the principles of using herbal medicine. But those are not condition specific. So in other words, this is not a prescriptive course of you have this health condition, use this herb or this formula. This is a course that's actually addressing some of the complex problems that we are facing now in in medicine, in allopathic medicine and in natural medicine, and in the interface between the two systems. And without being able to solve some fundamental problems, we can't really apply herbal medicine in a very personalized way. And those of you who attended my presentation earlier understand that the entire focus of this course is really about how do we personalize botanical medicine. And I took quite a bit of time to explain the importance of why we must do this, because otherwise we don't get the best results and people get discouraged. And so really what this course is focused on is raising our level of awareness about what is clinical level herbal medicine and how do we do it ourselves, and how do we use the evolving paradigms that are happening in natural medicine and in allopathic medicine also, and how do we put all these things together, and what parts of those things can we do ourselves effectively. So this is a course about the principles of clinical level self-care. And that's the main difference between this and previous courses. So that's one of the questions that came in different kinds of ways. How is this course different? Here's another specific version of it. Is the new course a condensed version of the 6-month plant medicine for modern epidemics course, or is it new material? And again, the best thing to do if you have this kind of question, if you really want to know how this course is different than previous courses, is take a look at that page at clinicallevelselfcare.com. And it will give all the module titles and all the bullet points in every module. And I always follow the bullet points of every module very closely when I teach a class. I always make sure that I teach what I say I'm going to teach. And sometimes it doesn't get taught on time in that week and it gets pushed over to the next week, but I always end up teaching all those main bullet points. So I'm very precise about what I tell people I am going to teach. And so it's all there. It's all clearly spelled out what you're going to learn. And I will also mention that in this particular course, it's going to be a smaller group than some of the really big classes that I've had, 500-600 people. And that's going to give us an opportunity for a little bit more personal interaction in terms of what do these principles mean to me? And what do they mean to you? And how do we actually apply these? And so the questions that I'm going to be talking about today are really addressing the kind of material that's in the course and what you can expect from it. So that's a quick overview. And with that, Sherry, I'll just go ahead and turn it back to you, and we can just, bounce this back and forth, and you can read off the questions as they're coming in. So what's question number one?
Okay, that sounds great. So question number one is, what type of supplements do you recommend for menopause? Or where can we look for trusted resources?
Okay, good. So this is a type of question. And it's a type of question that comes a lot. And I will answer it in the context of what this course is about. So what we're doing here is we're solving problems. We're learning how to answer this question ourselves, all right? So what kind of supplements do I recommend for menopause? Now, one of the practices that's very important for all of us to cultivate and to develop is developing a precise vocabulary for discussing our health. And so in this question, when I am asked, what types of supplements do you recommend for menopause? All right. Well, this is not a clinical type of question. All right. It's a general kind of question. And so to make this clinical, there's two things that we have to do with these terms. First, we need to define what you mean by supplements. And then second, we have to define what you mean by menopause. Okay. So I will be encouraging everybody a step at a time here to be very precise in how we communicate about things, because that's one of the things that you must do if you really want to make progress with your health. You have to learn the terminology. So supplements can refer to a lot of different things. It can mean vitamins, it can mean nutraceuticals, or it can mean herbal medicine. And so I'm going to answer the question as it relates to herbal medicine. Okay, so the question therefore would become, what type of herbal remedies or what species of botanical medicine would I recommend for menopause? Okay. And the second is that the question is really much too vague to even answer it, you know, and when it comes to menopause, because menopause has all kinds of different manifestations, from absolutely no symptoms at all to, you know, very uncomfortable, serious, ongoing chronic symptoms that are related to underlying complex problems. So I will frequently throw the questions back at you, and I will ask you what you mean. Do you mean herbal medicine to support a healthy woman? Okay, that's one way to answer the question. Is it for a healthy woman to have a healthy menopause, or you know, to have a healthy perimenopause so that you don't have menopausal symptoms or they're minimized? Or are you asking for specific kinds of symptoms? And if so, what are the symptoms? And if you are talking specific symptoms, that's where we have to move into the question of self-diagnosis, okay, or clinical diagnosis or clinical level self-care diagnosis, and say, well, all right, is this something that can be easily treated symptomatically? Is this a situation where you might be able to just go to the internet and look up some herbs and find, oh, black cohosh for hot flashes. Maybe it works and maybe it doesn't. So let's look at this then in the context of this kind of critical thinking. And let's be aware that in a lot of these kind of questions, people are thinking allopathically, all right? They're thinking, oh, I have hot flashes, therefore I'm going to take this herb. Well, there's a pretty high likelihood that that's not really going to work. Now, there are some cases where you can take black cohosh and it will work miraculously for hot flashes, and that's all you need. Or maybe you can use a little bit of clary sage essential oil in the bath, and it will have a pretty, you know, predictable cooling down kind of effect. But that's really a very superficial level. And that's what this course is about, is like, let's get more detailed. Okay, let's take this to the next level and talk about how we're really going to make this work. So the way that I can answer it is 4 basic levels of information, all right? And the lowest level is what I just mentioned. You can just go on the internet and you can just type in herbs for menopause. Well, it's a vague question, and you get lots of vague answers and lots of, you know, kind of superficial answers. And you'll probably see all sorts of products that come up and it'll say, oh, you know, this one is best for this symptom and so forth. But that's kind of a hit and miss kind of thing. And that's one of the things that we'll address in several of the modules in different ways, actually. But now there's another way that you can go up a level here. And this is important to know. A lot of people may or may not know about this next level up. And that is that a lot of the herb companies, the high quality, reputable herb companies that I will be referring you to, actually produce proprietary formulas, and they tend to be organized according to body system and according to symptomatology. So you can go to a company like Gaia Herbs or to Pacific Botanical. I mean, not Pacific Botanicals, that's a bulk tea. They don't do this. Gaia Herbs, Herb Farm, Banyan Botanicals, Herbalist and Alchemist. Okay, these are some of the top people that I refer to. And you'll see that it's organized, their products are organized according to function, according to body system. And so you can actually learn a lot about herbal medicine just looking at what herb companies are doing to formulate herbs. And you can go to any one of those companies and you can just type in menopause, and then you're going to see typically 1, 2, or 3 products that are for different parts of menopause. And they'll have some kind of name that is vague enough that the FDA is not going to come down on them, but it is descriptive enough that it tells the customer what it's for. And if you do this type of search, it's much better actually than just going to Google. And you can find that the herbs will be very high quality. I mean, the companies I'm going to refer you to, such as these, I have very strict criteria of why I have been working with them for decades. So these products will tell you in kind of a vague sort of way what they're for, but you can be guaranteed that they have high quality herbs, and you'll learn something then about formulation, and you can try that. And most likely, it's going to be more successful than just randomly picking something on the internet. Now, the next level is if you do some self-diagnosis, all right? And there's a whole lot of different methods that we're going to talk about in the course, okay? This is module 1. But one thing you could do, for example, is that you could get a Ayurvedic dosha test, okay? The 3 body types. And these are widely available. One of them that you could check out right now if you want is over at Banyan Botanicals. Now, what everybody's doing now is you have to enter your email to get your results, but that's okay. Or you can find other kinds of tests. I'm going to give an extensive list of where you can find these kind of resources. And so if you do this kind of body type analysis, you'll be able to dial things in a little bit more carefully, because typically the companies then are going to say, well, okay, you must be a Vata Pitta kind of person, and therefore for menopause, we recommend this kind of product. And of course, a lot of these companies, now they have an attached consultation with it as well. So that's the next level up. And finally, the next level above that is that you can create an individualized program for yourself by really understanding your constitution, your symptoms, why they're happening, what caused it, what's going to make them better. But in order to do this, you're going to have to break down the menopause symptoms much more carefully. And at that point, you're really getting up to the clinical level of self-diagnosis and self-care. And that requires more education. And of course, some people have the time and resources to do this, and some don't. And if you do, then you can go to the online education sources that I will be sharing. And you can find very high quality, state-of-the-art naturopathic conferences where, you know, world-class speakers are giving talks on the latest scientific confirmation and traditional uses of herbal medicine for menopausal symptoms. All right, then you are really at the highest level. So that's an extended answer on a basic question, and I hope it's helpful, but I'm really trying to point out what we're trying to do here, okay? So rather than just tell you, take black cohosh for your menopause symptoms, first we define the problem clearly, and then we know that there's different levels that we can approach it. So, Sherry, what's next?
Okay, you've touched on this one a little bit already. In this age of internet medicine, what are some reliable resources that you recommend?
Right. Well, I did just give several for the herb products. And again, I'll just mention the main, these are just a few actually. You got a long list in the course, but the ones I just mentioned, Banyan Botanicals, features the Ayurvedic herbs. And then there is Herb Farm, okay, and that is herb-pharm, Herb Farm. And then there is Herbalist and Alchemist. And then there's Gaia Herbs. And these are really high grade, top quality. So internet medicine includes a lot of different resources. It includes the herb companies, but there's also online herbal education. There's also telemedicine and consultations. There's scientific databases. There's medical journals. There's sources for books. And I'll just focus on a little bit more about the herb products, since this is a major part of it. I have strict criteria for why I work with these companies and a handful of others. And first of all, I've known them for a long time. I mean, I know the people who started these companies personally, and I know their integrity, and I know their background, and you know, we are colleagues in this field going back 20, 30 years in some cases. They all have high quality, very high quality organic products. And I will mention that that if you know your basic sources of high quality herbs, then you don't have to worry about all the other stuff that's out there. And all the other stuff that's out there is really a mess, both with essential oils and with herbal products. Quality control issues are just rampant, okay? But I'm also going to give you some sources where if you want to study the herb industry, you can learn a lot about what the issues are, like adulteration of elderberry became very rampant ever since March because it was flying off the shelf. And so that created the conditions where people were adulterating it. A lot of these companies, or all of these companies actually that I am referring to, are ecologically sensitive. Many of them have their own cultivation, agricultural projects going on and involved in sustainability initiatives. They're leaders in the field, basically. And they're fully equipped with quality control. Keep in mind that herbal quality control is very complicated. Lots of testing, microbial testing, raw materials, finished products, all of this. And it's good, actually. It keeps us safe. One of the things that we can definitely say about quality of herbal medicine in the United States is that it is highly, highly regulated. Okay, and that's somewhat of a controversial issue because people don't like the FDA regulating things, but on the other hand, it does play a role in protecting the consumer that you don't have in many parts of the world. A lot of herbal products in many parts of the world are contaminated with microbial, fungal contamination, pharmaceutical drugs, heavy metals, all kinds of things. We don't have that here. There are issues that do happen, okay? But we can be fairly confident as consumers that what we're getting at the retail level is safe. So those are a few of the things that I mentioned with that. I'll just focus on that aspect of herbal quality control only. So let's go ahead to the next question.
All right, our next question is asking if you could please say a bit about the connection between IBD and gum problems and the botanical treatments that might be effective at resolving or preventing both.
Right, okay, excellent. This is a good question, again, that is asking about specific treatments, but this course is really about clinical level principles. So solving problems. So what are the problems here that we're trying to solve? Well, we want to know, first of all, how things are connected in the body. The more we know about how body systems are connected and work together, the more we can self-diagnose, all right? And what's coming more and more is general knowledge of different physiological relationships in the body. And so one of the things that is very familiar now to a lot of people is this term gut-brain axis, okay? Well, that's a modern term. And at the same time, you see the same thing articulated in Chinese medicine when it talks about spleen qi deficiency. You see, so gut-brain axis it's not anything new. It's just that now we have a modern understanding of it. Modern medicine is starting to appreciate it. Naturopathic medicine really led the way with this. Naturopathic medicine really brought out this whole gut-brain axis thing. And modern medicine is now kind of slowly catching up, and allopathic doctors are starting to use the term and say, oh yeah, well, there's things like leaky gut and that can affect your mood, and gluten sensitivities, and these things are well established in natural medicine. And as they become well established in natural medicine, then they become well established in popular culture over time. So that's what's happening. And one of the things that this allows us to understand is how different body systems are interconnected. And there's all kinds of different things like the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, or the pancreas adrenal axis, or the thyroid adrenal axis, or the gut lung axis. There's all of these things that were understood in classical Asian medicine and treated, which are now coming. And so in this particular topic for the class, this is one of the bullet points that's on the page there, and it's called Recognizing How Localized Conditions Can Affect Other Parts of the Body. And this is under self-diagnosis, in the self-diagnosis module, okay, module 1. And this is very important because the digestive tract, referring to your question specifically, is just a tube, you see. And so anything that's happening in one end of the tube is going to affect the other. And so therefore constipation is going to affect small intestine, and it can affect, upper GI as well. And it can affect the mouth. And likewise, problems in the mouth can affect the entire digestive system. Now, it's not just the digestive tract that's affected up and down, it's the whole body. And we're going to look at this in quite a bit of detail in several modules in the course, actually, because it's so important to understand that a fundamental system like the digestive system affects everything. So dental issues, for example, we're going to talk about this in lots of different contexts, but one of the things we're going to do in module 1 is I'm going to give you an assignment. There's going to be lots of little assignments here. And these are going to increase your skill and your awareness of how your body works and your skill at diagnosing yourself. And so we'll do a detailed health history, and we're going to do it chronologically, not like just check off, oh, I have this and I have that. We're going to actually see, how did we get to where we are, and what happened first, second, and third, and what were the medications, and how did this impact me 10 years later? It's a really, really good exercise. And one of the things that we're going to see then are these interrelationships. And specifically, you have already discovered, this is implied in your question, you have discovered a relationship between irritable bowels and gum problems. And so they are linked. That's the answer, they're linked. And so gum problems, typically the most common things are gingivitis, inflammation, because the microbiome of the mouth is disturbed. And if the microbiome of the mouth is disturbed, it's going to affect the entire GI, and it can contribute to irritable bowels. And irritable bowels is a dysfunction of the microbiome of the large intestine. You see, so the simple answer is that the link is disturbance of the microbiome and disturbance of the mucosa, because they're both being affected adversely by the disturbance of the microbiome. So then the question is, what's the underlying problem? The underlying problem is inflammation, all right? The underlying problem is inflammation that is linked to a disordered, unhealthy microbiome. And when we understand the underlying pathology or pathological processes that are going on, and we see the underlying tissue system, then we can start to see that, oh, there are things that can work on both systems. Now, the treatment of irritable bowel disease is somewhat complicated because there are certain herbs that are contraindicated, first of all. And this is complicated clinically because it looks like there are microbes to attack, and you need things that are going to reduce inflammation. And a lot of those herbs are bitter and stimulating to the large intestine, and that's contraindicated. So we are going to talk about in module 4 contraindications of major groups of herbs for major conditions. And so this is one of the complexities, is that if you have irritable bowels, you need to treat it carefully and with sensitivity. But what we can say is that anything you are doing to basically reduce gingivitis in the mouth, and that could be just using holding some licorice tea in your mouth, for example. Well, licorice tea, after you've held it in the mouth, it's going to be soothing for the gums. You can swallow it down, and it will be soothing to the irritable bowels as well, you see. So we have to treat the entire thing based on the sensitivity of the colon. All right. So that's a quick overview with a simple remedy there also, and also some referencing back to the course. All right, so let's do one more here, Sherry, and then I want to pause and tell people just a little bit about the details of the course.
Okay, the next question is wondering about using pH test strips to check urine. Someone told me it's a great way to monitor your health.
Well, it's a way to monitor specific aspects of your health. And this is an example of something that people would come across in forum discussion groups. This is what we could call, this is kind of a good example of internet medicine, okay? And someone told me, okay? Well, let's be really precise here. Who told you, okay? And that is one of the most important factors for learning critical thinking when we're using the internet for research and study. Who said it, and who are they, and what is their background? And so I know that there's a lot of information that's being passed around. Facebook medicine, I think you could call it. People share different things with people, and people also put themselves out as being really knowledgeable, and they may have personal experience with something, but we always have to keep it in context. They have personal experience with something. What does that mean for me? All right. So this is an example of critical thinking. First of all, who said it? Who are they? And is it really a great way to monitor your health? Well, what is your health? Your health is a lot of things. Is it a great way to monitor your blood pressure? No, it's not a good way to monitor anything other than your urine, really. So that's how we have to look at it. But I will say that yes, urinalysis is important, but this is also what we're going to cover in some of the self-diagnostic in Module 1 specifically, the self-diagnostic discussions. And that is that we do have these tools that are available to us, and they do mean something. And the more we know about what they do and don't do and what they're good for and when to use them and when they're not important, then we will understand how to really answer this question. So there are specific things that we can monitor the urine for. And actually in classical medicine, examination of the urine was important, and we can learn those things, and we don't have to, learn the sophisticated methods of Tibetan medicine or anything like that, but we just can monitor some basic things. And I will say that there's something more important to monitor, which we don't need pH strips for, and that is just look at the color and the concentration of the urine. That's the most basic thing. If your urine is getting too dark, that means you're getting dehydrated, that's all. And if it's, too frequent and too abundant and it smells sweet, you better get your blood sugar checked, okay? Those are a few things, but you can monitor the acidity level of your urine if you have a propensity towards kidney stones. That can tell you something. And in general, yes, you can monitor it. And you can see some long-term kinds of things, like if you eat a really unhealthy, acidic kind of diet, that'll show up. If you're eating a more alkaline, healthier kind of diet, that will show up. But the body keeps the pH in a relatively narrow range anyway. And so that's why that is not all that effective. And I'll just say that the pH strips in the mouth, they're equally limited. And then of course we have the clinical urinalysis, and this is something you can order. You don't have to go to, you don't have to pay the doctor. You can just go online. You can order a urinalysis test. They'll just send it to you, take it at home and mail it in and get the results. Or you can go to a place like LabCorp and just give them the urine sample. They'll take care of it. And this is important for other kinds of things. And what urinalysis is really for is looking for bacteria in the urine, a possibility of a urinary tract infection. So those are a few things that we can consider with urinalysis. Good question, thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to pause here for a minute, and I want to direct your attention to the course page again. So if you want to switch over there, this will just be 30-second diversion to clinicallevelselfcare.com. And basically, what I wanted to show you on this page is just very quickly a few main things. This is starting next week, all right? It's starting Thursday, October 22nd. And it's going to be every Thursday at 5 o'clock. These are all going to be recorded, and you can listen in anytime from anywhere because it's recorded. And the full description of the course is here. You probably already looked it over since you are here in this Q&A. But I wanted to mention one more thing that's down towards the bottom. If you scroll down, you're going to see the complete description of all the modules. But there's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and that is that we have these bonuses that are going to expire by tonight, okay? And so this is down towards the bottom. You're going to see, if you register by tonight at midnight, all right, then you're going to get an additional bonus. And I know some of you are actually taking the course because of this bonus, and thank you. It's called Listening to the Heart. It's 5 Saturday mornings, 10 o'clock California time. We're going to do a guided meditation. And there'll be different, there's not a fixed period of time with this. Somewhere around an hour, we'll just do this. It'll be a meditation session, that's all. But it'll be a guided meditation with commentary. And some of you might be familiar with this practice already from some previous courses, but it's a unique practice. It's the meditation practice that I do the most and I enjoy the most. And I actually learned it from classical Asian medicine, listening to people's pulses. And I realized, oh, there's a lot of information there in people's pulses. Oh, there's a lot of information if I listen to my own pulse. And then I started really delving into, well, what is in the pulse? And I discovered all of these amazing mystical dimensions to it. And that's what we're going to be exploring. So it's just another way of self-diagnosis, actually, because if you listen to the pulse, there are a lot of things that you can apply to clinical level self-care as well. If you start listening to your pulse at different times of day, you're going to notice that, oh, it feels different before a meal, after a meal, before exercise, after exercise, before bed, after waking, all these kind of things. It becomes another tool of self-awareness. And this is a very important point that I want to stress. This course is really about developing self-awareness, all right, at a fundamental level. Self-diagnostic skills, learning how to take care of ourselves at this higher clinical level. It's really got significant spiritual dimensions of self-knowledge and self-awareness. And there will be some parts of different modules that are really devoted to that. For example, in module 4, where we're talking about how do you use herbs safely, keeping in mind that everything you take is an experiment, no matter where it came from, whether you got it from a highly skilled clinician or from the internet, you have to test it. And there's ways to do that safely. And the more you combine self-awareness, the better it gets. Okay, so that's one of the bonuses. And then the next bonus is just a presentation. Well, it's not just a presentation. It's a great presentation, actually. And I really enjoy it, which is why it's a great presentation, because this is a really important subject. And this is the impact of entheogens, the impact of vision-producing plants on culture, spiritual history, religious history, and so forth. And it's an amazing subject to talk about. So you are invited to that also. And that doesn't actually give the date, but that's included in this bonus package. And we will certainly inform you of the date when you purchase that. Okay, so Sherry, let's go ahead to the next series of questions. We'll squeeze in as many as we can. The hour goes by so quickly, but I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, great. So this one is about allergies.
Mm-hmm.
Having mild allergies getting worse over time and lasting longer than just spring. Clear liquid leaking from my nose, so using tissues more than normal, especially after sneezing. I'm using a diffuser in the living room and have an air purifier in the bedroom. I have a diet full of organic fruits and vegetables and getting plenty of exercise, mostly outside. What else do you recommend?
Okay, good question. Now, one of the main objectives in teaching this course is that I would like to share with people how I think about these kind of questions and how I solve these kind of problems. Because this is something that anybody can do. It's just a questioning process, really. And so you are asking me a question, but I'm going to turn it into a questioning process. And I guess you could say that's kind of a Socratic method. Okay, that's how Socrates used to teach. He didn't answer, he didn't give answers, he asked more questions. So this is something we can learn how to do. And I'll use this style here on this particular question. And so the course is really about how do we solve these problems. So there's couple different ways. One is I could just tell you some answers, right? I could just say, oh, well, okay, might be this, might be that. But instead, there's a set of questions we can ask. And this is the role of the clinician, okay? The clinician, if you were doing a consultation with me, these are the questions that I would ask you, all right? But the thing is that you don't need a clinician to ask those questions. You can ask those questions yourself, all right? And that's what I mean by self-knowledge and self-awareness. And asking these questions then helps us to track down the causes of problems. And it also reveals the kind of treatment strategy that we would like to use. Now, of course, every treatment, you know, an herbal tea, like say, well, okay, you could try this herb or that herb. It's an experiment, and there's different levels. Some of it's very symptomatic, but the more symptomatic it is, the more we run into the potential problem of it not working or it not working well enough and people getting discouraged, and then people say, well, herbal medicine doesn't work. So these are some of the questions that I would then ask you, okay, about this to help me understand this more. But these are questions you can ask. And once you hear these types of questions over and over again in the course, then you will ask yourself these questions to start with. So first of all, you're telling me about the situation of mild allergies getting worse, all right? And so I would first ask, okay, where are you in terms of your location? What's happening environmentally? And there's a clue here because you say that you exercise mostly outside. And let's keep in mind now that here in the United States, that we seem to be divided between fire and water, okay? And in both cases, they're terrible for allergies. So, you know, pretty much anything in the Western states, if you are going out for any kind of exercise outdoors, there's a very high likelihood that you're getting some kind of, you know, downwind effect of smoke. I mean, even on the east side of the country, they're getting smoke from California. So it's possible that that's a factor, all right? But on the other hand, on the eastern side of the country, it's water, and that means mold. All right, so the first thing we look at over and over again is what is the impact of the environment on our health? It's a major consideration we have to take in, we have to prioritize actually more and more and more. What is happening in the environment? And it's going to be getting worse. And it's going to have a bigger impact on us. And what can we do about it? And yes, there's herbs that can protect us in various ways we can protect ourselves. But I would ask, first of all, where are you and what's the impact environmentally that's happening? And there are also specific regions where certain things are more specific. And of course, the obvious thing is, what are the allergens? I mean, what do you know about the allergens? And is it possible that they're just getting worse? One tool that you could use to maybe monitor this is that you could look at some of the weather sites, okay? And they will tell you air quality in your neighborhood. And you may find that there's a link between pollen levels and your symptoms, you see. So these are tools we can learn how to use. And then there's other kinds of things, because you say, this is just a little detective work based on your question. You're using a diffuser, all right? Well, another question that I would ask you is, well, what oils are you using in it? And is it possible that you're sensitive to those oils? Because sometimes there's a paradoxical reaction, and we have an essential oil like eucalyptus oil, which is supposed to be good for our respiratory system. And for some people, it actually gives them sinus congestion instead. You see, so there can be a sensitivity to essential oils. It might be something in the diffuser. Or maybe it's just that you're using too much essential oil in general. It's a possibility. So I take a question and I just kind of take it apart, and I'll just keep going here for another minute. From your question, it sounds like you might be a vegetarian or a vegan. And if so, then the question is, are you maybe lacking some nutrients in your diet? And this is especially important by age and weight, constitutional strength, and so forth, because really Besides looking at the environmental factors of what's causing the allergies, we have to look at what's happening inside the body as well. Why are you getting more sensitive? Could you maybe be eating too many cold and raw foods? That's a classic kind of Chinese dietary concept here, is that if you're getting more mucus, then you warm up your diet. Don't drink cold drinks. That's a basic rule for helping to reduce, phlegm congestion and mucus. And one thing I'm going to say over and over and over again is, have you started any medications? Because lots of medications create problems in the sinuses. Do you have any dental issues? Okay, have you had some dental work recently? Because dental infections, if there's root canals, sometimes they can affect the sinuses. Then there's a whole series of remedies. And again, we go from very superficial, symptomatic to increasingly personalized, all right? So you may try just using more essential oils. It could be that aromatherapy is not the problem, but it could actually help a lot more. You could do it in steams and baths. Then you could take simple symptomatic herbs, and a few things are going to be things like nettles and eyebright and goldenrod for tea, and tulsi and ginger, the aromatics. And these are very symptomatic. But then you can do the exercise that I gave previously, and that is you can go to the herb companies and you can, every one of these herb companies that I mentioned, they all have something about sinuses and they all have something about allergies, all right? And then you can just check out that product, and that's a good way to do it. And then you can graduate to the next level, which is more self-diagnosis and using stronger herbs that really start to address the deeper situation once you have answered some of those basic diagnostic questions that I asked. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and I'm going to mention one more thing about the course, and that is that there is a consultation package that comes with it. And if you scroll down, oh yes, you also get the 20% off at the Florocopia store. And related to this question, actually, one of the bonuses that you'll get is the Combining Herbs and Essential Oils course, 2 modules, okay, on respiratory and immune health, okay. So that's an extra bonus that's there. That's related directly to this. That has all kinds of formulas, actually, in that bonus. And then there is the consultation, all right? And the consultation is something you can just add on. And if you add it on with the course, then it drops the price from $150 for a 1-hour consultation to $100. And for those of you who have already registered and signed up, and I have seen that quite a number of you are getting this consultation package, and some of you have already scheduled, and I'll be talking to you soon. So thank you very much for that. But I did want to mention that also. And it's a simple process. You just go online, you schedule, and then I will get back to you and say, okay, do you want to do it by phone or by Zoom? And then we will do an initial intake, and I will put together an herb program for you. And typically this can all be done in an hour. And then you can just have a home pharmacy. So I do this with a lot of people, and it's a nice system, and people are getting a lot of benefit from it to learn how to use a home pharmacy that's individualized for them. All right, so let's see where we are. Sherry, why don't we go ahead and do 1 or 2 more if we have time. We have time for at least 1 more here.
Sure. All right. So the next question is, in researching internet medicine through top sources such as PubMed and others, there are studies based on supposed high-level impartial testing, which later turned out to be false and fabricated. How can you trust any studies nowadays?
Yeah, good. Good question. And this will give me an opportunity to talk about several related complexities. So the main thing with the internet research, okay, is that we look for who's doing it, who's behind it, and we follow the money, basically. We just say, okay, there's education, which is neutral. And then there's marketing, which is not. Okay, marketing has an agenda. Marketing is trying to sell you something. And Where this question is very interesting is because there are scientific studies that have been influenced by an agenda, okay? And I'll give you a example here and use this as a way to explain some of these points. So the short answer is that when it comes to researching the scientific databases, most of the information that's there about botanical medicine tends to be relatively neutral for the most part. And it's not highly politicized, but there's another issue that's very problematic. And that is that there is in vitro research and in vivo research, okay? And a lot of the studies are done in petri dishes on cultured cell lines, okay? Or a good example is that there's a lot of research going into antiviral herbs now. And this is being driven by the pharmaceutical industries. They're looking for natural alternatives to antiviral drugs because antiviral drugs are creating so much resistance so quickly. And that it's not just antivirals, it's antibiotics, antibacterials, antifungals, everything. Nature is smarter than humans, okay? And so as soon as we create a drug, nature is smarter than we are. So there's a lot of emphasis and research now going into what are the plants that can help us. And a lot of this research shows distinct, very successful results with disrupting various aspects of cell replication and DNA activity and cell membrane destruction and all these kinds of things in vitro, okay, in a petri dish. Now, where this becomes corrupted by marketing is when companies take an in vitro study and they say that it is applicable to in vivo uses. And the case where I have seen this the most, this happens, you know, with all kinds of things. It happens with herbal products, but it happens even more with essential oils. And so the big multi-level marketing companies have very aggressively and very fraudulently made claims about the use of essential oils against these microbes, against cancer cells, against viruses, against bacteria, against parasitic organisms, as if you could take the essential oil internally at doses that would kill them in your system, and you cannot. Okay, so that's fraudulent, okay? And that is misrepresentation of scientific research, saying that something that will destroy a virus in a petri dish will destroy it in your body, and therefore you should buy this product and take it. That's the problem there. But another really politicized issue that I'll mention here very briefly, and our time is almost up, and that has to do with vaccines. And that was the first thing that crossed my mind when I heard this question is, yeah, there's a lot of political stuff that happened with vaccines in the scientific databases. Now, here's what's really intriguing about this is that thousands and thousands of parents went to Congress and organized because their children were having vaccine damage. And there were hundreds of studies coming out showing that various vaccines had various adverse reactions. And yet somehow the entire thing politically just got reframed as there's no link between vaccines and autism. All right. And that's kind of where it's at right now is that the medical establishment says there's no link between vaccines and autism, but somehow there are just too many unanswered questions still. And so what we have to do then, you know, and without opening up this gigantic can of worms, I'm just going to tell you how to get around this entirely, okay? Because this is a very highly emotionally charged subject. And on the one hand, you have people, you know, medical establishment says vaccines are necessary, they're safe, they should be done. Every infant should have 30 of them before age 6 months. I mean, all of these things are just kind of established now, okay? But there's lots of unanswered questions. And on the other hand, you have people who throw the whole thing out and they say, no, it's all dangerous and it's all fraudulent and it's all being covered up and all that kind of stuff. Neither of these approaches is 100% correct, all right? And I'm gonna give you the answer. How do you get out of this mess, okay? All you have to do is read the insert that comes with the drug, all right? And I'm gonna encourage everybody to do that over and over and over again. Anytime there's a medication, you just read the insert, okay? You don't have the insert anymore, well, you just type it into Google and there it is, side effects, all right? And here's the thing is that you don't need to participate in either side of the vaccine debate. Every drug has risks and benefits. Every vaccine has risks and benefits. All that is necessary is that you become educated about it, okay? And right there in the insert, all right, it's gonna, let's say, so I've had a conversation with several people in the last couple of months about shingles vaccines, all right? And some of the side effects, and a couple of cases actually did have side effects from the vaccine. And so I said, look, read the insert before you go and get shot number 2. Think about it, okay? And it's right there, okay? The shingles vaccine has the risk of giving you shingles, okay? And it has the risk of all these other neurological inflammatory reactions. That's how we get out of the debate. We don't debate on either side. Forget the vaccine debate. Just read what the drug does, and then we have to make an educated decision about risks and benefits. Okay, it seems like it's a good place to leave our conversation as any with something controversial, but I hope that that's helpful. It's extremely, it's a very complex subject, but it comes up a lot, and I will mention that this is a big part of self-diagnosis, all right? It's especially if there's been a lot of vaccines, all right, over time, because there are these links that we can make empirically, but I'm just going to leave the subject for now. I'm just going to say that it's a contributing factor that we should all be aware of. I don't take extreme views with anything. You probably are starting to figure that out. I question everything. I question every side of every debate, okay? And I just try to get to the most simple resolution of it. And I'll just mention that this is a big aspect of self-diagnosis and a big impact on health. And we should know about it. It doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's good and bad or neither or both. It just means we need to be educated about it, that's all. And the more educated we are, the better the decisions we make. And that goes for all drugs and all herbs and all natural treatments. Okay, so with that, Sherry, I'm going to turn it back to you for final comments and closing. I think that I have said everything that I wanted to say about inviting people to look at the website, look at the page that has all the information, and I'll just go ahead and say thank you for being here. Very much appreciated. And so you can see again, clinical level self-care there is in the chat. And so Sherry, I'll turn it back to you for final comments.
Okay, thank you, David. I think I have a new name and title for you, and that is David Crow, Health Detective.
Ah, that's true. Good.
Thank you so much, David, for your presence, your warmth, your knowledge, and clarity and authenticity. Much appreciated. We hope to see all of you in next Thursday, starting at 5 p.m. Pacific. That's Thursday, October 22nd. And if you know right now that you'd like to sign up for the course, please do go to clinicallevelselfcare.com, and we'll also give you that bonus of joining the meditations and the other bonuses that are available there. All right, I'm going to say goodbye, put on some lovely music for you to enjoy, and hope to see you next week. Bye for now.